Hello, strangelings. Welcome back to the parlor. Now, today, for my Thursday thought, I actually have one that has been kicking around for a few years. And again, this is getting into my birthright work. For those of you who don't know, for my birthright work, I kind of have to frequent both mental health and spiritual spheres of, well, the world, actually, but the internet especially in the modern day. Now, of course, my birthright work is the work that I set myself upon in the 80s when I was a very small child, as I was not only learning as a modern girl, but also had my Bohemian Gypsy lessons at home, which of course were handed down from my great-grandmother, the Bohemian Gypsy who was being trained as the grandmother of her tribe before she was forced to come to America. The United States specifically. So, this is an idea that actually has psychologically really, I won't say hurt, but irked me for sure, for a very long time now. You see, this is, there are kind of twin thought processes that come from the same damaging root thought, which we will get into in the end. I will go ahead and tackle the spiritual end of this particular thought first, because, well, let's just say I have my most trouble with magical thinking. Yes, a Bohemian Gypsy. And yes, I said trouble with magical thinking. Trust me, that is right on par for a Bohemian Gypsy. We are nothing like Romani or any of the rest of them. Literally. Romani, Roma, oh Lord. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to get into the list. There's if you guys don't know much about gypsies, believe it or not, and I know the Romani would have you believing otherwise, there were hundreds of gypsy tribes back in Eurasia. Hundreds. The most famous and notable, actually, are more like the Mongolians, or the Goths, or the Huns. So, anyhow, on the spiritual end, the thought process that I am trying to tackle today presents itself in one cannot manifest without sacrifice. Now, going by the actual spiritual teachings of the ancient world, from where my people are actually from, manifestation, and this is not a direct definition, but manifestation means to create of yourself. Believe it or not, it does. And to create of yourself, you then have to take something that is raw material and turn it into something recognizable. Or at least that will be recognizable when people get to know this new product you made. Right? Now, why would that be opposite of sacrifice? By this, before I start in, I will point out the fact that sacrifice, in this case, is not a discussion of taking your time and energy. Time and energy is required for literally anything, including breathing in your life. Believe it or not. And I really wish you would, because the truth is, you need to understand how energy actually works. But literally everything you do, my talking right now, is using energy. I had this thought of a video I wanted to make. I am currently, right now, right here, manifesting the video I wanted to make. Sacrifice is a whole different beast. Sacrifice is not giving up your time. Sacrifice is not giving up your physical energy in the effort of making something. Sacrifice is giving something up is destroying something or removing it from your personal purview. And generally, especially in the case of this particular phrase, you are doing so in the expectation of receiving something else from it. This is not the same thing as creation. To be able to do this, in fact, is a form of trade. And the only way one can trade an object is if that object is already in existence. Normally, in a sacrifice, the thing you are trading is something that the person you are sacrificing to has already made. Maybe something they've already used. So, unfortunately, trade, therefore, is not at all the same as trade is not creation. Trade is commerce or economy, whichever you prefer to call it. Now, the reason why this thought process is damaging is it is like telling people that you are not good enough to have this thing that you have had for so long and you love and you want to keep it, and also have this that you want to create and bring into being. It's like saying you are not allowed to have both. You are not good enough to be able to have both. You are not worthy to have both. And the people who are saying this tend to want you to believe you are your own deity. At least you are your own demigod. And if you are your own demigod, then why are you not worthy enough to have both? But these are also people who want to let you know that your current sacrifices are not worthy enough to get you the things you believe you need in this moment, the things you are asking for here. Now, of course, the same concept exists in the mental health realm. However, this one, I have much more, I would call, expertise knowledge in. Because this, of course, relies on psychology. Something that I don't have a degree in, however, I needed to study in depth to fill in the gaps where the state of Iowa's lack of making sure I had medical as a toddler and young child had created in my mental health work to fix the abuse I had been suffering through for the first 5 years of my life. And because of the very statement itself and my experience with the things they're saying in said statement. The statement is, you cannot fully love anyone else until you love yourself first. I have heard so far as people calling it false love. Because if you don't have love for yourself, well, then you can't have full love for someone else. Well, this is, of course, dramatically false. I call it dramatically because the problem is where the last statement, well, that has magical thinking, and that magical thinking is also a bit false in its own realm. This one is unfortunately far more damaging. You see, my expertise was when I was 5 years old, seeing that first therapist who was actually completely and utterly making sure they knew what was going on in my brain so they knew what to fix. Well, at 5 years old, in his office, I was sitting there in the chair, just a few feet away from him and my mother in the doorway, while he explained to my mother, who fully knew that his use of big words was not keeping it so I did not understand what he was saying. He told my mother that I was so in loathe of myself, I so hated myself, that I pose a mortal threat to my own life. That I was not to be alone for more than a few hours at a time, if she had no choice but to leave me alone at home while she goes to work. That hopefully will be, not enough time to get me to start going into the negative cycles because I'm alone. I, by the way, early on learned to use the TV to combat some of that. So to help my mother with her stress of being a single parent of 4, having to work 4 jobs. And with brothers who didn't really feel like they should have the responsibility to help baby sister with her mental health. And I mean, they were children too, so I'm not going to put that on them. But as someone who has a mental health note in my record, that I am personally a danger to myself because of my level of self-loathing. I spent my life in that situation for 42 years. I was about to transpose the numbers, sorry guys. For 42 years of my life. And mainly because I had a tendency to jump from one frying pan of abuse out onto another frying pan of abuse again and again and again and again and again. People I knew, people that you would think would naturally have more of a love for me. Everything. People I didn't know, strangers, kids on the playgrounds, kids out in the wild while I'm trying to walk with a friend who's several blocks ahead of me. All of that. So for 42 years, I have been in the kind of stress and pain, not just the physical pain that I lived through for now almost 45 years of my life, but just dealing with other humans. Because of that, of course, it's really hard to grow a self-love, especially considering my abuse started when I was 2 weeks old, which means even beginning in that normal place that we begin, where we are the center of the universe, for our first few months, if not at least weeks, I wasn't allowed to participate for my brain. So for those 42 years, of course, I've had a lot of people come in and out of my life. I've had a lot of people who were more long-term relationships. And I have some people who are extremely long-term relationships that are at least a couple decades old. Not a single one of those people who are being honest, fully honest, could tell you that I was anything other than full, deep, and selfless in my love for anyone but myself. I was the only one that I served hate constantly hot on a platter. I have plenty of friends who even know that I have gone so far as to engage them in spending time with me to disengage some of my self-hate, but also to increase their happiness towards themselves. and our relationship together. The problem with the statement, of course, is to tell someone who has deep emotional issues to the point of having a lot of trouble finding love for themselves. People like me who spent most of my life not even being able to look in the mirror. By the way, that started when I turned 18 and bought myself a gift because my boyfriend did not want to. It was the first mirror in that apartment. And part of the reason why I can't look at mirrors. That's a tale for a different time, though. We'll discuss that later. I haven't been able to look in a mirror since I turned 18. Until just recently. And by look in a mirror, anybody who's seen my videos before I did the reboot and went ahead and scrubbed my channels, you guys might know I had a video talking about exactly how I have to look at myself in the mirror unless I want to completely and utterly break down in tears. In tears. Because of my body dysmorphia caused by not only my mental issues, but the aftermath of the mirror. Now, again, I have had a very unhealthy hatred for myself for 42 years of my life. It's going to be 3 years here very soon. Unfortunately, it's not 3 years on my birthday. That'd be a month away. But it's going to be 3 years here very soon that I finally decided to start to try to find a way to live with myself. And I have managed to work myself up to liking, at least somewhat, myself. I may even get to a point where I full-time like myself, possibly even love myself. But for someone like me, who hasn't gone through my extremely early childhood trauma, so that they weren't able to form a sense of self, so that they were more able to absorb what was happening in the real world, is more likely to actually believe that their hatred for themselves makes them a less effective, loving person, a less effective caregiver. It can downright make people who don't like themselves, let alone love themselves, actually hate themselves. Because that false love narrative makes them feel like they're faking it when they're not. The capacity for human love is in no way related to the capacity for self-love in any metric whatsoever. Yet the narrative is still being pushed. Yet all of us who are in that unhealthy place are, instead of being encouraged to learn to love ourselves, are being told we are bad people for not loving ourselves. Which makes us not want to love ourselves even more. The truth is, love knows no about love. Pardon me. Let me say that without letting my tongue get all kind of twisted around. Love knows no real bounds. Hatred is not the opposite of love. That's why it's still easy to love others while you hate yourself. You still have to have feelings for yourself to hate yourself. And it's the feelings that make you generate the feelings of love towards the others. Especially seeing how some of us are doing that. I know for some parts of my childhood, I was cultivating love for others in the hopes that I could learn to push that back onto myself as well. And I can tell you right now that the several times when I was trying to learn to love myself, Hearing the narrative that there is no way to learn to love others without learning to love yourself first, because it's a false love if you do that, set me back on my path many times. I would have possibly, now I had stressors upon me. I have had stressors for 42 years of my life upon me. So, of course, I might never have gotten there if those stressors had continued. However, if those stressors weren't in my life the whole time, it would have taken me so many more years to heal and to start actually being able to live with myself, just based on the amount of setbacks I had from being told that my love was not only imperfect, but incorrect, because I wasn't loving myself first. Both of these thoughts, of course, all right, and there's some happenstance for you guys. Just so you know, the spiritualists would be calling that confirmation, and there was 2 there. So I guess I'm on to something as far as those who believe that this narrative is okay to push. The reason why I made this video, of course, is because that beginning idea. Both of these thought processes, and so many more, are born out of the idea that you are not good enough. In manifestation, you are not good enough to have both the thing you loved for so long and the new thing you want. And in love, even if you get to a point where you love yourself, many people will then tell you that you are a narcissist because you have these boundaries and you don't want to do what you don't want to do. As someone who decided at 18, when I started having children, that not only can I not take myself out of the equation, but I needed to start taking care of myself at least enough to take care of this first person who was keeping me, well, the second person who was keeping me alive, but the first person who I was staying alive for, well, she was no longer in this world by the time that second person turned 3. So that then became the first person I was really living for. Once he was born, I knew I had no choice but to find a way to at least eventually live with myself. The fact that I kept hearing this, until you love yourself, you can't love anyone else, actually set me back many times. So, harmful is not helpful. And then, of course, now that I've been out of my stress for the last 42 years, or been out of my stress that I had been in for the last 42 years, pardon me, of course, I started to realize that these narratives served a deeper, more sinister purpose. You see, telling people that they are not good enough keeps them striving to be better, keeps them less likely to take the time to rest and heal that human beings require living in the modern world. And it allows those who prefer to use your time and energy instead of in the things that you want to pursue for yourself, would prefer you use your time and energy for their pursuits. Them having you take time to heal and rest, you see, they see the short side of the stick. They think, well, of course, they're going to be spending less time working if they're healing, if they only spend 3 days a week at work because they spend the other 4 on themselves, whether it's doing work for their own household or working literally on themselves. Oh, how's my work going to get done on time? That's the short end of the stick. If they would see the long view, of course, Thank you, Green Day. If they'd see the long view, of course, they would recognize that the rest and relaxation of a 3-day on, 4-day off schedule for a week provides the actual healthy balance to keep them working more long term. This employee that you're working hard and heavy, well, because of the amount of stress from working hard and heavy and the stress they put on themselves thinking that they must constantly strive to be better, well, of course, these people tend to live somewhere between 60 to 100 years. Now, when you look at the actual studies, by the way, there are studies on this, and I'm not going to go through the Wikipedia to find a starting point for you. I'm going to let you do this research journey on your own. But there are studies proving that people who have a more relaxed and leisurely life, people, i.e., who on average work 3 days a week, well, these people, they live into their 120s. We're still having people who live to 120 today. Right now, the oldest person is a woman who's 118, I believe. However, before that, it was 125. When I was in grade school, the oldest person was in her 120s. People who take more time to make sure that they are healed, who take more time to observe leisurely moments so they're not too stressed, live much longer lives, because as someone who has, unfortunately, sensitivities to things like adrenaline and cortisol, those chemicals are extremely damaging to our cells. And unfortunately, the constant drive to move, to better, to everything. Yes, 8 hours sleep, guess what? Isn't enough. Averagely, females need more sleep. Averagely, females need more sleep than males, and averagely, males need more sleep than they get. And we're talking on the 8-hour model. And by averagely females need more sleep, I am talking about the fact that they're finally doing sleep studies on females right now, because they didn't do studies on females for health at all until in the 90s. And I mean 1990s, ladies and gentlemen. Now, why did I make this video? Well, I made this video because you deserve to treat yourself better than constantly pushing towards a goal that is ever moving. You deserve to treat yourself better. You want to continue to strive constantly? I have no qualms with that. What I would like to suggest for those of you who want to constantly strive, 50-50. 50% of your life should be the strive. 50% of your life should be the rest. That should be dispersed throughout. Not large chunk, large chunk. Those who work flat out until they hit their 60s and then retire are the people who are most likely to die in their 70s, if not before. My love for you extends enough that I prefer that you try to extend your life. I don't even know you. I'm on this side of the camera. I am looking at a camera lens. That is your face for me. So I don't know you personally. And I don't know, maybe I know you personally, I just don't know you're watching. But I want you to be able to live a happier, healthier life. So I encourage you, strive as hard as you like. If you want to strive for most of your life. If you want to spend your life ensuring that you better yourself, that is a noble goal, sure. But not if you don't take it in balance. If you do not take it in balance, you are undoing all of the work you are doing while you are doing it. Remember, strangelings, no matter what anyone tells you, you are enough. You are enough, and there is no caveats to add to it. If you'd like to add caveats, they should only be your own. And don't ever let anyone tell you what capacities for feeling you have. Don't let anyone tell you you are lesser by virtue of not being able to do what they can do. And remember, doesn't matter who you are, I love you. Take care of each other. And I will see you guys in the next video.